I just wanted to do this recording, and it puts me up against lots of people, and it's about ethnicity. Now, one of the things I feel is that there are several schools of thought about British ethnicity, and in the archaeology, let's start up front. We do see that it's quite cosmopolitan from a very early age. And what do I mean by that? Well, when I say cosmopolitan, right, I'm talking about people from different parts of the world. Now, excavated in London, dating from in excess of around 1,800 years ago, we've got 4 people that have been identified as having Chinese ethnicity. Now, you could argue how they got there or whatever, but the DNA speaks for that. You also need to look at what was the makeup of the Roman Empire. In the Roman era, what type of people came over? But there would have been traders from everywhere coming over to Britain to trade, all the way around the Mediterranean, Asia Minor, Africa. And obviously later on, you're talking about people coming from Scandinavia, Low Countries, and all the rest of it. So you're talking about the one thing that I'm really offended by is this idea that, nobody's ever come over here until about the Windrush generation in the 1950s and 1960s. One thing that really I get really offended with is that the only people living in this country are white up until the 1950s and 60s. That really offends me because I come from South Wales and I've been brought up with the idea of Cardiff Bay. Now, lots of Somali sailors coming over in the late 1800s from a place of Africa where obviously they're very tall, different traditions, but lots of them end up living in Cardiff and Swansea and other places. So, and then we think, right, okay, ethnicity. Years ago, when I published my book, well, it was the second version, but it was very different. Romans in the Vale of Glamorgan. On the front cover of my book was an illustration of somebody with a completely different colour skin than somebody that lived in Britain. And people accuse me of being woke, socialist. I absolutely, hate socialism, but that's me. They accuse me of being woke, socialist, and obviously signing in with this sort of one world thingamajig, right? Which is definitely not me, right? But I'm reminded over and over again that people trading from the continent are very different looking in all ways. We don't need to use the C word, but they're very different, right? And some of them come over here, some of them trade, some of them might settle, and some of them might intermarry. Great. But that doesn't really bother me. I just accept it. I just accept it as rote. I don't really see what the issue is. Because one thing I do know is that Neanderthals, Homo sapien Neanderthals, and Homo sapiens sapiens, and Homo sapiens, Denisovians, strains of Erectus, Florensis, and all these other types of beings interbred at various different times. So when we get Homo sapiens, we're a mixture of everything. We're a sort of, is the word admix, we're a mixture of absolutely everything. So by the time we get to the melting of the ice in northwestern Europe, what we do see 12,000 years ago is those people living here, and there would have been a small number of people living here even before the ice has melted, right, they were a massive mixture of different types of hominids out of Africa, out of Asia, and so on. So, accepting that, when we actually go through the generations, what we see is the evolution of Britain. And this is quite a short lecture, actually. When we look at the evolution of Britain, what we do see, the British Isles, after the ice is well melted, at the stage where Doggerland is flooded, and we're looking at least 8,000 years ago, right, when Doggerland is flooded and the land bridge is lost. Some people say the land bridge is lost earlier. What we're talking about is sort of people that have got DNA that have been here for a while, people that have moved from Europe, from different places, and maybe Africa or whatever, depending on what their reach was, and then Asia, and then what we do see is the isolation of Britain, and then what we do see is wave after wave after wave of people going back and forth. There are people coming from Britain over to Europe. There are people going from Europe over to here. This is one thing that archaeologists and historians don't tell you. We went over there. We went over to Europe as much as people came over here. That was after the land bridge was lost. Again, we went over to Europe. And as somebody who's a University of Highlands and Islands archaeology master's graduate, which I've got, what we do say is that most of the influence from Britain is actually coming from Orkney. So we've got waves of influence from Orkney, pottery, standing stone circle, henges, settlements. And you're thinking, well, okay. And then some of that technology and culture is going over to Europe. So when people argue that we've got waves of people coming over here, let's talk about waves of people going over there. It's fine. I haven't got a problem with it. I don't have a problem with this sort of migration thing. It's always happened, right? So what? You know, my mum, right, has got a weird DNA, right? She's got a European DNA, right? She's got black hair, right? So it's likely that I've got African, I'm sort of 6th or 7th generation African, right? It don't look it, does it? I haven't got a problem with that. Am I half caste? Don't really care. I'm also of gypsy lineage as well. So that comes from Europe. So what does that make me? You know, I'm as cosmopolitan as they get. And so are my children, right? I don't have a problem with it. But what I do have a problem with is people accusing me of being racist the other way around. I'm racist against white people. What an absolute kettle, what an absolute load of rubbish. I don't really care what somebody's ethnicity is. I really don't give a damn. But what I do care is when people make it an issue. There's this historian out there. Well, when I say historian, there's a guy, and what I'm going to do, right, there's a guy, right, and this is what really upset me the other day, right? I'm going to see if I can get any of his stuff on you. I probably won't be able to find it. There's a guy the other day on the internet who claims that, hang on, I'm just trying to get his name. Do you know what? I can't really find it. He keeps propping up. Anyway, it's a bloke, right? Recently, he said, he made the statement on his video, and I actually turned off because I thought, actually, this is going too far. You know, this is actually racism, right? I can't remember his name. I want to mention him. I'm going to put this video on his feed, right? And this is about you, mate, right? Oh, sod it. Let's not mention him. He'll come back and he'll criticize me. I'm an archaeologist, right? And an actor, author, whatever. But this guy's saying, what people from Afro-Caribbean backgrounds are trying to do in Britain today is rewrite history, right? You know, they're trying to turn around Oliver Twist and the Charles Dickens stuff and making films out about it. That there's actually people in them now, actors who are from Afro-Caribbean backgrounds, right? And actually putting them in the films. My argument is, how do you know that there weren't Afro-Caribbeans in Britain in the 1840s, 1830s, and all the rest of it, right? Tell you what, pal, right? in the beginning of the 1800s, some of those soldiers who fought for the French, right, who were prisoners of war, were, strangely enough, a different colour skin than you. So what? Right? We had colonies of people from all the way around the world. India, Africa, some of them come over here. So what? Right? They intermarried, right? Some of them may have been household servants, but there were household servants who were equally white. There were prisoners of war from the Jacobite rebellion. Do you know what, right? We kept, the slavery's another thing altogether. Let's just not do slavery, right? But what I'm trying to get at is, right, what's the big deal, right? And this guy on the internet, on YouTube, he argues, right? But because there's no photographs of any people from an Afro-Caribbean background from the late 1800s, it proves that nobody was over here from Africa at all, right? Well, I can argue with you, pal, that after the defeat at Ulundi, after the successful Battle of Isandlwana in January 1879, after the Battle of Ulundi, King Ketshepsut was actually brought over here, right? With some of his servants and whatever, right? He was here. There's photographs of him here. There's photographs of pygmies here as well. Tell you what, right? I don't really care, right, what ethnicity you are. The main thing as well is, if we want, it's not an issue anymore. I don't really care, right? We're living in this country. We get on with each other. We get on with different religions. Whatever, wherever we are from the world, we're cosmopolitan. And I believe Britain has been cosmopolitan for a very, very long time. Slag me off, attack me, threaten me, want to kill me, put the daggers in and all the rest of it, right? We have been cosmopolitan for a very, very long time, right? And there's no problem with that. Who cares? You know, Septimus Severus, Roman emperor, he died in York, right? And his son Caracalla took over, right? And this was in the year 212, right? Maybe out a few months there, 212, right? He died. The capital of the Roman Empire became York for a very short period of time. Caracalla, his son, took over as emperor, right? Septimus Severus was a different looking guy than us, right? And some of his soldiers were different looking, but some of them retired here and they had children. And what's wrong with that? Get over it. Tell you what, right? I don't care what you say about this video, but I wanted to say it, right? Cosmopolitanism is here. It's been here for a very, very long time. I don't care. And let's live and get on with our lives. If you agree with this video, like it. Hopefully you watched the video all the way to the end. Thank you very much. Ethnicity. Love it.